Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ruslan Mursalzade. I'm a product marketing manager at Google Cloud, and I'm excited to host our panel today on the topic of building a product marketing career. We have a rock star team of product marketers here, so I'm excited to get to know them better, introduce them, and talk a little bit about how they've gotten into product marketing and how they have built a career in product marketing. So what I'd like to ask each of the speakers to do is to introduce themselves, what they do now, and how they got into product marketing. Morgan, maybe we could start with you.
Great. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Morgan. I am also at Google. I'm in product marketing for Google for Education. So we do Chromebooks, Google Classroom, Google Workspace for Education, and of course, everything having to do with AI these days. And I've been at Google for it'll be 9 years in September. And I fell into product marketing, I'll say. I actually was a teacher before, so I did Teach for America and taught kindergarten in Dallas. And I wanted to go afterwards, I thought maybe naively, into policy. And then I really started to think about my school as an organization and wanted to learn from a company with a really great culture about how to build really effective teams. So I came to Google, and I was in people ops for the first year and a half-ish. And then I spent a bunch of time doing 20% projects, lots of Google lingo here, but basically spending an additional part of your time working on other projects that you are interested in across the company. And I did like 6 with the education team, and many of them in marketing. And I kind of fell in love with it. I love creating stories and making meaning. I love and I'm obsessed with learning about the new products and what we're building, and have found this really awesome niche of still working in education, but also getting to be the one to launch it and kind of bring it to the education sector now through product marketing. So
that's exciting. Yeah, I've heard a lot of different paths, but education is the first one I've heard, actually. So a very interesting path. Dan, would you like to follow suit?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Dan Brooks. I currently, or I should say, I formerly was at Square, leading Afterpay core payments, global product marketing on the business side. Right now, currently, I'm advising a small ad tech startup in their product marketing needs. So that's very exciting. How I got into product marketing, I want to say, like Morgan, I feel like it was also by accident, although it was probably a little bit more intentional. I've always been a marketer by trade. Originally, way back when, did very traditional marketing, like newspaper ads, TV ads, things like that. And then decided that I wanted a little bit more, so went to business school. Came out here after business school. I'm originally from the East Coast, but came out here the tail end of the recession, and companies weren't really hiring still. So I actually started my own consulting company and started doing some marketing strategy projects, some product launch projects for clients that I met and needed marketing assistance. And then was able to spin that into a hybrid mobile / product marketing gig, and eventually ended up at Oracle, where I worked in their product marketing department for several years, and then moved on to PayPal and then to Square. So I don't really feel like I targeted product marketing intentionally, Ruslan, but I still ended up in it somehow, and my skill set and my interests aligned. So that's where I am today.
That's exciting. It sounds like you also got into it by working with some of the leaders in the tech space, some of the big brands. So you've probably work with some of the best teams and learned some of the best practices as well along the way.
There definitely had some great teachers, great mentors, and great teams that I worked with on both the larger side and in the startup space as well.
Excellent. Dragana, how about you? What's your story?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Dragana Boras, Director of Product Marketing here at Datadog, overseeing a suite of our products, including integrations, cloud cost management, et cetera. And it's funny because I actually come full circle. Ruslan and I worked back a few companies ago, and now my team oversees all of our product marketing to do with providers. So we work very closely with GCP. How I got into product marketing was actually very intentional. This always seemed like an interesting field to me. So I first started off as an analyst, then got into market research, and quickly saw that yes, PMM is definitely where I want to be, and have grown since. Say similar to what Dan has said, I've been fortunate to work for some great brands and learn from many great people along the way, whether at product-led companies like at Atlassian or now at Datadog, or at more marketing-led companies like Salesforce, which is always interesting to see what shape product marketing takes there. But regardless, that same skill sets of storytelling, of thinking about the entire customer journey, et cetera, will always apply. And when you work for and get to market fun new products, it's never a dull day. So it's always something new.
Yeah, and especially if you have great colleagues like Dragana, where you learn from them and you continue growing. Samia, how about yourself? What's your story?
Yeah, hi everyone. Really nice to be here. And yeah, so I recently started a new gig as a lead PMM at eBanks, which is a payment solution for companies expanding into emerging markets. And before that, I was leading PMM at Stripe for Latin America, so really focused on countries like Mexico or Brazil. And yeah, so this is, I'm starting something new, so I'm really excited. And yeah, how I got into PMM, well, it's been quite a journey. I don't really quite know. I think it was kind of like a natural transition for me. I started working at this French company, which was, smaller company. So I was doing a bit of marketing, but I was also really working super close with our customers and therefore, really getting involved in the direction of our roadmap. So I started to work a lot with product. And that's when, we started kind of like defining this product marketing role. And it made sense for me to become a product marketer. I was really familiar with the marketing roles, the product, our users. So that's how we all started. And I haven't moved from product marketing, in like 6 years. So that's what happened.
I'm curious to hear your perspectives on the upcoming questions, because you almost had to build this role and you had to, pitch it that this is valuable. Sometimes it's tough to do that in a small company.
Totally. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. On my side, I actually studied finance, and my first job was product development for a financial software company, and got into product management, and then eventually got into product marketing as well. And marketing wasn't something that was similar to a lot of you actually. I was drawn to or wanted to end up in, but ended up loving product marketing because it was strategic, but also it was really close to the product, which is what I wanted to be. I think one of the things that I noticed is that being able to be cross-functional, be able to speak with different functionalities, and be able to be a good project manager and communicator are very important skills in this role. I wanted to ask you all, what do you think are the most important skills to get into product marketing for someone who's not in this career yet? Maybe Morgan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. It's a great question. And as someone who did not go to school for marketing and has kind of learned everything that I know at Google, actually, I've definitely worked with some really strong marketers. I think there are a few things. One, you hit the nail on the head. We work in such a cross-functional role. We're with legal, policy, product, the rest of our marketing teams, right? Program management. It's the Wild West. And I think you really have to be an over communicator and be able to bring everyone along and make sure that people have the information when they need it. Being able to drive like a consensus and just be a leader in that space. I think you also really need to be able to work with urgency, right? So planning with the end in mind. We all have these deadlines, right? And launches and kind of something we're working towards, and being able to operate with that sense of urgency. And then at the same time, something will always go wrong, and being able to operate, within ambiguity and knowing that the deadlines are going to slip or something's going to go totally haywire, and being able to just kind of roll with the punches, I think makes really strong marketers. And then, of course, I'm not trying to steal everything that everybody else is probably going to say, but just being a strong writer, too. We write a lot of positioning and messaging, and that's the reality of what a lot of our days are. And being able to understand, your user and understand the product, and then simplify it for an external audience. So just some of the things that I was thinking. I saw some of you nodding along.
Yeah, all of those resonate with me, and all of those are things that are hard to learn. I'm curious to hear from the others. What other skills have you noticed?
Yeah, +1 to everything Morgan said, right? And I think a lot of that, right? Like, so one thing is like, it's almost like we're like relationship management. We do so much of that, right? And like building that trust within the different cross-functional teams. And the other part plays in very nicely to what Morgan said, right? Like, yes, it's the messaging and positioning, but also it's going beyond that. And I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier, right? It's that storytelling aspect. It's the ability to create a narrative, not just one that's going to compel your customer to buy the product, but also that's going to compel everyone internally to collaborate on this, to align on what it is, right? Because we're really the ones who are communicating to the wider business audience about what the product actually does. So that's where I think the key comes in.
Yeah, it's very important to bring the engineering, the product, and the sales teams into the same room on the same narrative. And that's how you build successful go-to-market strategies. If everyone's kind of in their silos and doing their own thing, it might not necessarily be as successful. So that product marketing role becomes extremely important to your point.
That customer journey also is going to be key, right? Like making, like not just thinking about a singular aspect, but continuing on from there. I think, Dan, you were trying to add something.
Oh, no, I was going to add to everything to what you all both said. I would also say to augment that, you need to be concise. You need to be concise, and it needs to be simple. And when you write, it needs to be what I would say is business writing, not necessarily towards businesses versus consumers, but there's a very big difference I've learned between writing for a consumer or a business audience versus like writing a poem or writing a story or creative writing, right? It has to be concise, it has to be simple. A customer, whether they're a merchant or a consumer, has to understand what you're getting across within 2 to 5 seconds. Otherwise, you've lost. And you have to be able to do that while taking probably a very, very complicated, complex product and simplifying that down into a concise statement while not losing the meaning or the value proposition. So that +1 to everything you said, plus that.
Yeah, not only you need creativity and storytelling, but also being able to get to the point and deliver that value proposition in a sharp, concise manner. I agree with that. Samia, what's your take on this?
I fully agree with all of that. I feel like it's really important for a product marketer to know how to like read in between lines, like make sure to translate that message. And, I feel like you also have to be like really able to show empathy, because you are communicating with a lot of different stakeholders who are focused on, different things. So you have to know how to read their priorities and make sure that you can, become a valuable stakeholder for them. So I think empathy is something that you can't really learn, but, as a product marketer, you have to exercise constantly to make sure that things are moving forward, projects are moving forward, and things are getting done.
You brought up another point where like we're at the end of the day, this is all about people and being human, and the stories are about that as well. So being able to put yourself in the customer's shoes or the product manager's shoes is extremely important. We talked a lot about different skills, but a lot of these skills like thriving under ambiguity, storytelling, all of these are things that you can't learn in a school. What type of tips or strategies do you usually employ to strengthen your skills in this area, or someone who's just getting into product marketing, what should they do to learn these skills? Morgan, maybe you could start this time.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Oh my gosh. I was thinking as I was listening to all of this, it's all the soft skills, right? It really is. Like I can teach you to write a brief, but I can't teach you how to, have a conversation and like connect with someone else. So I think the number one thing is just like practice. I know that sounds silly, but get experience, like do those 20% projects, right? And just try to like learn on the go, I guess, and shadow. I always find conversations and panels like this are so useful to just soak up experience. Like I'm learning so much from all of you. It's really nice to like connect on all of this too. Yeah, I think just like being a part of a team that's working on something and seeing all the different roles that people play and being able to observe, along with, taking some of these like courses or, or doing kind of side projects as well. I don't know if I have a great answer for this one.
You mentioned online courses, being more involved in things like these, basically community, like product marketing focused communities, etc. Those are great tips. Are there anything else you've done, Dragana, or any other learning opportunities that you've employed in the past?
Yeah, I think a lot of it also comes back to like things we've done with our team was even do fun stuff like have somebody from improv come in, right? And just help you understand how to be more reactive to like whether it's a Q&A part, right? Or how do you present more, like, or how do you engage your audience in different ways are all like really fun and different things that you could do that help make you more of a confident presenter and make you, understand how to deal with different parts, whether it's like, a question coming out of left field in a meeting, or you're on stage in a panel, let's say like this, and now you have a very conflicting thing, or you're doing a webinar and your customer definitely goes off the rails based on what you guys agreed. So we've done really like fun, like different tactics like that and everything. I mean, I think traditional things you could do like, oh, I beefed up my PowerPoint skills or anything like that. But nowadays you have like a Google Drive template for everything. So it's like, it's not as, let's say, necessary. And we've done storytelling workshops, right? Storytelling is always like big. So it's just different things to make everyone feel more comfortable about presenting, but also to think about how do they weave that into their everyday job, whether they're writing a blog, whether they're, doing a first call pitch deck, like whatever it is.
Yeah, those are great tips. Any other thoughts, Dan or Samia, on this topic in terms of learning and growth?
I just think it's really important to build a community, with other product marketers and share what you're learning, how you're feeling. Like you will not always have the answers to everything, but you can tell them about your projects and where you're getting stuck and maybe like hear some of their ideas. And also internally, like I think it's important to learn how other teams are working, like what their processes look like, so you can connect with them better and maybe start building your own processes based on that. So I think that can really help a new product marketer succeed.
Yeah, those are great. And
plus one to what Samia said, I think being able to source out and just learn from other product marketers. One of the things that's difficult still with product marketing is, relatively speaking, from a functional perspective, it's still a relatively new field compared to like accounting, right? Accounting's been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Product marketing, not so much. So there's still not, it's getting better. There are certainly groups online. There are groups within your networks, meetups, things like groups in person. You can go and join and learn and get those harder skills, how to write a brief, how to, do a pricing strategy, things like that. But, in terms of the soft skills, actually, you don't necessarily have to learn how to network for product marketing, right? You can just go out and network with the meetup. You can go and get those soft skills in other places. If you need to learn how to prioritize, if you're a freelancer, you're going to know how to do that very quickly. Otherwise, you're not going to be a great freelancer. So there are lots of different ways you can get the soft skills, but for the hard skills, I would agree, trying to find out and seek out other product marketing professionals, advice, insights, thoughts. A lot of it's through osmosis, and a lot of it's just through that internal knowledge. So definitely plus one to that.
Yeah, I know I've attended a lot of meetups related to marketing or related to business in general, and I've learned a lot through those. From my personal experience, I also attended a lot of startup events where a lot of these startups that are really early stage, they actually don't know what's going on. So they are looking for folks who are willing to come step in and wear the multiple hats. And that was a good learning opportunity for folks who are more interested in the arts. For example, I've found stand-up comedy or improv to be good for storytelling, or that being able to do public speaking. Those are good skill building exercises. And then getting involved in your local community, like nonprofits, especially if you are able to take on a role of project management or something coordinator role, that could also be great, or coaching your soccer team, local soccer team, etc. Those are good skills to help you get into marketing and product marketing eventually as well. Let's say folks who are gotten into product marketing and are looking to grow their careers. Maybe they've been a product marketer for 5, 10 years or so. Now they want to take that next step. What are some of the strategies you're taking, or if you're managing a team? I know at Dragana you are. Maybe we could get started with you. What are some of the things that folks should be doing to grow their careers, get that promotion, get to the next level? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it a lot of it comes from like more of a strategic prioritization aspect, right? Like one, of course, it's always going to be about taking initiative, but it's not about always saying yes to every single thing. Like evaluate what is in your plate and focus on what's going to drive impact, right? So that's what I look for. And what I look for my team, if I'm promoting you from PMM to senior PMM, I'm going to see like, are you able to think through strategically? Being a great collaborator is always going to be key, but what I'm going to look for is your ability to say no and to have a reasoning why you're saying no to certain things. Because when you say yes to everything, that means you're going to deprioritize other things, right? So for me, that's always key in thinking like, are you looking at the big picture? Are you thinking about business impact? Or are you just thinking about how, you can make your partners happy? So
yeah. Especially product marketing can get all sorts of random requests, like social media and emails and all these things. Being able to prioritize.
I always joke that a PMM is the one marketing team that doesn't have like a request form associated with it. Like we just get everything thrown our way.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to the how to measure it. You mentioned impact. What types of impact do you usually look for in career growth or making that apparent across the organization?
I guess it's hard to quantify. I don't think maybe saying, oh, I grew this business by 25%. What does 25% mean? Did you grow it from like 100,000 to like now, 125,000? That's not that big. But if you grow it from like 1 million to 2 point, and like it matters differently. But what I actually look for, if I'm just looking at like what are some key success metrics that a PMM should be focused on, I always look at things like engagement. That's going to be key for me. Of course, there's the standard, right? Like pipeline contribution, marketing. But for me, when I talk to a PMM and I'm like, how do you measure the success of an asset? And if they tell me by the number of views, then I'm like, okay, so you did a great job partnering with demand gen to make sure that people are coming to this. But actually, the success of your asset comes from the engagement rate, like who actually clicked through. Like, how did they engage on this? Like, what did this create going further, right? So, like, not every asset is going to lead down to an opportunity, or like might lead to an MQL or whatever it is. But for me, it's about identifying and knowing that, yes, we want to focus on obviously generating new business, but what levers are we doing? And I actually focus on a lot on how we optimize. If we already have like 3 great blogs about the topic, and now you're like, I want to write a 4th one, I'm going to question, say, why do you want us to compete with these 3 great ones? Why aren't you using the SEO juice that you've probably built in from these other ones to make more?
Yeah, those are great points. Having the right metrics and showing that across to demonstrate impact. I'm curious to hear from other folks. Samia, maybe you could actually talk about this. I know in the first job, that PMM job you had, you built that role. How did you demonstrate impact, and how did you use that to grow your career?
Yeah, I think what I did at that point was really trying to understand what were the metrics where some other teams needed help with. So I aligned with product, I aligned with marketing, even customer success, and even support. If we could touch on helping users solve some FAQs in an easier way, or like get more adoption of something. So at the beginning, that was very challenging because that meant that I had to participate in a lot of different initiatives to actually have an impact. And eventually, you know, that changed. I think for more mature organization, it's easier to say no and to really like set up some boundaries, like have some more like clear KPIs that you can share with other teams. But if you're the first PMM, you really have to get involved in a lot of different activities to make sure that you're proving why there's a need of a product marketer and what's the actual purpose of, you know, getting a team for that.
Those are great points, Samia. Morgan, you've been at Google for a while now, right? 5 years, you said?
Oh, coming up on 9, actually.
9. Oh, yeah. How
yeah.
did you do that where you built a case for your career growth within the company?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to say is on Dragana's point about saying no. A manager gave me this book years ago. It's called The Power of a Positive No. And if any of you have not read it and you have a problem with saying no, go read it. And it really helped a ton. It just talks about like reframing, right? And ask. And I think, you know, there's a time to say yes when you're really new in your career and you're trying to build a relationship, and saying yes to product or whoever it is really powerful, and being able to say like, yes, I will do that thing. Like there's nothing more I like to do than to make something happen. But I totally agree with like ruthless prioritization, because otherwise you're just going to be doing tons and tons of little projects. And then at the end, you're going to take a look back and be like, what did I actually really accomplish? So I think for me, you have to make yourself invaluable too, to make them see like, you know, I can't actually do this without this person. And just proving your worth, whether it's on kind of a really high visibility project, right? Whether you raise your hand and you ask for it, or you actually guide the strategy. Like, for example, we've started talking a lot about accessibility or sustainability and these like huge narratives that are really important for our customers. And we had never done that before on our teams. And so I built out kind of our strategy and why we should begin incorporating those narratives, and have helped guide like product strategy. So I think if you like know the user, there's this thing at Google, like know the user, know the magic, and connect the two, like that, I think is really the key to a successful career in product marketing.
Those are great, especially in larger companies, prioritization and working on the strategic, impactful projects. Dan, did you have any additional thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, to echo what other people have said and expand on it, I think sort of what we've been saying is prioritization is key, right? It's where we sit as product marketers in an organization. To Dragana's point about like the one team that doesn't have a request form, right? We will always be getting things, and it's up to us to prioritize what makes sense for yourself personally, what makes sense for your team, what makes sense for the company. To that extent, you need to have clear goals and clear goals up front. You need to set those clear goals with your manager. You need to set those clear goals with your stakeholders, really, and manage those expectations. Having done all that, I think one thing to augment what Morgan is saying is you not just make yourself invaluable, but you have to actually proactively advocate for yourself and have your team advocate for you, have your stakeholders advocate for you, have the manager advocate for you. Because again, where product marketing sits, and intrinsically our function being that sort of connective tissue, being that central node between all these different teams, if you're not visible and if you're not rightly taking credit for the successes that you have contributed, unfortunately, another team is going to take credit for that. So you really do need to be proactive in terms of saying like, hey, product marketing, we did this, and it's hard when we're in a function that sometimes lends itself to less quantifiable metrics and measurement. But that's why setting those goals, whether they're qualitative or quantitative, up front, and being clear with every stakeholder what those goals are, then you can go back at the end of a project and say, hey, we met these goals, I met these goals, this is the success that I contributed, and therefore, you know, I should continue to grow, my team should continue to grow, we should have, you know, additional funding, I should get promoted, whatever the eventual objective is.
Yeah, I want to echo that. Even when you prioritize ruthlessly, pick the right projects, and make a huge impact, if you're not being proactive in communicating that impact, that's going to fall flat, right? And I know that's something that I took a while to learn in my career, where I was just doing things and moving on to the next things. And it can be tough to send out a email to the team saying, I did this. What I've learned, tactics that help with this are having periodic marketing updates or product marketing updates, where you highlight the existing ongoing projects or the impact that past projects have made. Take away from the personal aspect of it and make it a more of an update. And a lot of times I receive positive feedback where teams are saying, I didn't even know this project was going on, or I didn't know that we were promoting this product. And they're usually happy about it. They applaud it. I know we're almost out of time, and I want to close on, we have a question from the audience, from Isamar. They would like to find out, what advice do you wish you had received when you started out in product marketing? And we could each kind of say our perspective on this.
I wish that I had been told that it doesn't have to be perfect to share it and get feedback. I think when I started, I felt like my blog had to be perfect, or my deck, or whatever, my positioning, whatever it was, before I shared with stakeholders. And that was probably the biggest mistake I could have made, because everybody has feedback for you. And I'm like a completely different collaborator than I was back then. Now I'm like, show your seams, share it early, get feedback, bring people along, make people invested. So I think that's probably my biggest piece. It's like, don't be afraid of failure. One, you're going to fail. It's inevitable, and you're going to make a mistake, and that's okay. And, you know, ask feedback and bring people along early. It's the only thing that will make you successful, because it's so cross-functional.
Yeah, don't make perfect the enemy of like good or done, like, which is so great. And I'll say for me, yes to that, but also like something that I remind myself and my team, right? There's always going to be prioritization disagreements, etc. Bring the data with you. It's so much easier to seem unbiased and for this to be, right, like a much more of a fruitful discussion. If you're like, here's the data behind why I want to do XYZ, or why the team has shifted priorities to this. And if the numbers are there, it's kind of hard to argue with that.
100%. I agree with that. Samia and Dan?
Yeah, I have to fully agree with you, Dragana. Like, I think it's easier to say no and to like set up priorities when you have data. So it's always important to come prepared and to, again, like say no to the things that will not bring a big impact to the organization.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, I guess that, sort of going back to our first question of how and why you got into product marketing. I guess if someone had told me, I still wouldn't have changed the way I, my eventual career, but I thought that product marketing was going to be much more organized than it ultimately has been. I thought, product marketing, they're very strategic. There must be very process oriented and very straightforward, and clear goals and everything like that. Welcome to the chaos. Especially, actually, I shouldn't say especially at smaller companies, but you have to be comfortable with ambiguity. Data is great when you have it. A lot of times you don't. And you have to make judgment calls, and you have to negotiate with a bunch of different teams and a bunch of different personalities. And there is no, at least in my experience, there has been no 2 days or 2 months or 2 weeks or whatever alike. You are always working on the fly, so to speak, with the best information and the best teams and the best support that you possibly can have. But still, it is much less of a straightforward job than you would realize. But a great job at that.
I agree, and I agree with all the statements that were made here. I think for me, at the end of the day, you are product marketing, meaning be an expert in the product you're working in. Understand what the value proposition of that product is, and be an expert in the customer that you're serving, who your target audience is, who your buyer and user personas are. if you know those two, you can never go wrong. You'll be in the right position to provide the right inputs across the board. With that, I think we're at time. So I want to thank all of our panelists for being here today. Appreciate it. And thank you all for listening in. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.